We truly live in the best timeline where we get this amazing title screen. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition really is a great game. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to part 90 of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Last time, we defeated Zanza, and we made a world with no need for gods. But that's in the best timeline because we aren't close to being done yet with all of Definitive Edition. So, in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, for just simply beating, well, the base game at least, you get this fancy title screen. Fancy title screen, wow. Of everyone just hanging out in the new world that they made. You can just completely ignore the other two Nopon that are above Ricky. Those two don't matter for right now. But there's something else about this title screen that you might as well just know, because it's not just the Monado on the grass, or it's not just this really raw and wholesome imagery of everyone just hanging out. There's also the fact that each area in Xenoblade has its own little title screen. You can basically see all the areas of Xenoblade Chronicles in the title screen. But really, if this is your first rodeo with Xenoblade, then you should definitely skip these, because it's pretty much best to see these areas for yourself. Like, if you really want to see them, then that's perfectly fine. You know, go right ahead. I won't stop you. But just so you are aware that these are basically all the areas. That's Colony 9, Tephra Cave, Bionis Lake, Colony 6, Satoral Marsh, Magna Forest, Frontier Village, Arid Sea, Alchemoth, I believe Prison Island is also in there. Valak Mountain, Sword Valley, Galahad Fortress, Fallen Arm, Makana's Field, Central Factory, Agneritha, and I believe also Prison Island 2 or Bionis Interior might also be in there. I'm not entirely sure about that, but yeah, they're all in there, present and accounted for. So next we can finally show is the event theater, because in the event theater there are heart-to-hearts and main story, which you can very easily view at any given moment in time. And yeah, I didn't decide to show this when we first shown this off, because this contains, well, all the spoilers in the world. Well, all the spoilers for all the party members, because I didn't delete my save data. But for each of the main story, you can separate them via chapters, aka this is the prologue that happens, you know, before the Colony 9 attack happens. Chapter 2 is the Mechon attack on Colony 9, and so on and so forth. And of course, Chapter 17 is the final moments of the whole video game, including Melancholy Tyrea. And as for the heart-to-hearts, they're sorted by characters, which is really weird. Like, I mean, it's great that they're sorted by character, but it's kind of weird how they wouldn't be sorted by location. So, yeah, aside from that, you can basically view heart-to-hearts at any given moment. And if you're wondering why there are two Sunrise by the Parks, it's because one of them is with Homs Fiora, and the other one is with Mecha Fiora, so that's weird. That's really weird. Why would they do that? I don't know. Maybe it's just because something really cool happens to Fiora too. I'm not entirely sure about that. Who knows why that happens anyway. Okay, so now this also gives me an opportunity to show off what the voice acting is like in other languages, aka the other language. So, Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii and Nintendo Switch, not the new 3DS, supports dual audio, aka you can play this with both English and Japanese voices. So this gives you an opportunity to see what the original version was like. And this also gives me a chance to show off what the voice acting is like for Japan. The cutscene, A Power Born from Hope, where the party is fighting against Dixon and everyone encourages Shulk and Fiora to fight. That's a really, really good scene, and I really love that. And this also gives me the opportunity, and you can also modify your character's appearance in these cutscenes too. And also including weapons. Because basically, any weapon that Shulk has, replica Monado or otherwise, and also the junk sword, which is Shulk's starting weapon, can be changed within these things. You can just completely ignore the other two replica Monados right now. They don't matter. They don't matter. Yet. So, while I go ahead and do all this, allow your ears to be blessed and or cursed, maybe, by the voices in Japanese.
あなたはなぜ戦うの？ザンザに力を貸して何もかも滅んだ世界であなたはそんな世界が楽しいの？メリア！立て、フィオレン！シルクと共に生きるのではなかったのか？こんな奴のために無駄に命を削るな！
そうよ！欲しいものを手に入れるの！死んで守るなんてダメ！
シェルク、そろそろ本気出せ。俺は知ってるぜ。モナドがなくたってお前はこんなやつより強いって。
リキだって知ってるもん。シュルクはいつも勇敢だったもん。いつもの気持ち思い出せたもん。シュルクは本当の勇者だもん。
そうだ、借り物の力などいらん。自分の力を信じろ、シュルク！シルク、行こう、シルク。私たちの力で。
そうだ、僕たちはみんなから受け継いだ思いと自分の力で。
I didn't really say it last time because I was just a little bit too focused on, well, showing off a little bit of the post game in my original Let's Play of this. But honestly, after hearing the Japanese voice cast for a little bit, I mean, I still prefer the English one because, well, let's face it, I'm a fan of English and not having to read subtitles at the bottom of the screen. Okay, I'm not going to go into the whole, like, sub versus dub thing. But what I am going to go into is the fact that I think the Japanese cast is pretty good. Yeah, I think they do a pretty good job. And, but, in two cases, I just don't really think, like, the voices fit for the characters. Like, Ricky is supposed to be this 40-year-old Noppon with a family and wife and kids. And yet, he still sounds like a little kid. And even though the voice actor for Dumban is really iconic, playing Captain Falcon and Vegeta, like, I'm pretty sure you know who those are. I just don't think the voice fits for his character. Like, I just think that Xenoblade kind of set a trend for me where it's like, the Japanese voice acting can be pretty good, but some voices don't really fit for their characters. And I think as the series goes on, I think that trend becomes more and more, like, obvious to me. So, yeah, I do think the Japanese voice cast does a good job. I just personally don't think that some voices fit the characters as well as they do in English. I'm just saying. Oh yeah, by the way, New Game Plus is happening. So you can only do this with clear data with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition or the original Xenoblade, because that is a thing. Do you want to carry over a part of this data and start a new game? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So, in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, there are absolutely no limitations to what you can carry over in terms of items. This is basically what carries over to a brand new playthrough if you're doing New Game Plus. And I accidentally left it on Japanese. Well, whatever, it's fine. So things like characters, levels, affinity, skills, items with no limitations for Definitive Edition are carried over. Meanwhile, big things in the story like Colony 6 progression, story progression, key items, whatever. Basically things having to do with the story and maps, they all don't carry over to a new playthrough, basically. Also, you see those little rocks right there? That could possibly be Telethia coming to the Mechonis over to Agnaritha. Thinking about that for a hot second. Think about it. Here's a fun fact that you're definitely going to be aware of. So, in this first battle, you actually already have the buffs of Monado and Chant. I think they obviously recognize that New Game Plus players are going to be not having the Monado anymore, considering that it was Dunban Sword before it got over to Shulk's. But you basically have the Enchant and Regenerate buffs. But I want to take a closer look at Mumkar. Like, you can also get Mumkar's face unit clothing, which looks really cool. I really love it. Like, why didn't Fiora get this cool of a design? I have absolutely no idea. I mean, beauty definitely is in the eye of the beholder, but Jesus. I see that beauty in the eye of the beholder, which is basically that. I'm honestly kind of ashamed, though, that Dunban doesn't actually use his weapon in the his standard weapon in the cutscenes, because basically in the original game, in the original version, it's you basically have it basically defaults to the last weapon that you used Dunban's on. Basically the last weapon that Dunban used in the final battles, basically. And yeah, it looked really funny, but I guess that's what the the achievements are for. No, that's not what the No, that's what the event theater is for. What am I saying? What am I talking about? Also, yeah, Shulk now holds the Monado 3, aka the true Monado in there. And also, I want you to take a quick listen to this cutscene. It's right there on your back, my guy. Also, it seems obvious, but during normal cutscenes and not the cinematic cutscenes, you can just press A to skip the text, along with the option of pressing pause and then to skip the cutscenes, obviously. Anyway, Shulk has the Monado 3. Basically, you carry over all of your weapons and armor and all the other items that you got from your first adventure and then some. So any items that you may have gotten, any advanced art books that you may have gotten are also carried over. So you can be basically overpowered as hell for this adventure. Anyway, Shulk's Monado 3, the true Monado. Look at this thing. It's a beast. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. It looks so crazy cool. I mean, obviously the Monado 2 will always be my style, but the Monado 3 is definitely a really cool weapon. And it's not just that too. It's one of the most busted, if not the most busted weapon in the entire game. Because you'll always have an extremely consistent auto attack. See, you see right there. My auto attack is 1487. Always and forever until I equip off of this weapon. But not only that, but it has a 100% critical hit rate. What that essentially means is that the party gauge will keep filling up because crits will fill up the party gauge. That's incredible. That is very, very incredible. And Shulk's Monado is so cool. So yeah, you can basically be the most busted thing ever in all of the game. Well, at the very least, until you get to the super bosses anyway. Then you can have some real trouble with that, even in New Game Plus. Anyway, what's also changed about New Game Plus is the fact that you can actually re-earn affinity coins too. Any unique monsters that you have defeated can be beaten again with the things. Yeah, any unique monster that you've beaten before can actually give out affinity coins again. So that way you can basically have all the skills on all the characters that you possibly can have. So allow me to go over to the place where that unique monster is, so I can demonstrate for you. And isn't it absolutely crazy? It's absolutely crazy that we've been this far already. And we're back to where we started, because of course we are. Okay, so for example, Verdant Blue Call. So if I just so happen to beat him, just like this, you can, I believe you can still get your affinity coin this way, even though I'm pretty sure, I don't know if they actually really changed it for Definitive Edition. I'm not entirely sure. But the point is, your skills will obviously remain the same. But you just don't have the ability of skill links yet until you get those, well, affinity coins. I think it's kind of obvious that you basically need to be at far along in the game enough to unlock them. So, yeah, I'm just going to do that really quick. And what am I doing? I should really get Quick Step onto Shulk. Man, over 90 videos in, and I still don't get the memo that Shulk is supposed to be, you know, at Quick Step levels of awesome. And, oh yeah, any quests that you have, any quests that you have done will reset too. Now, here's the interesting thing about Fiora. Hum's Fiora and Mecha Fiora are considered different party members. So, basically, she's in the level, Hum's Fiora is basically in the equipment and level she was in when she disappeared from the party forever. Well, not really forever, but you understand what I mean. Yeah, so Hum's Fiora definitely doesn't have as much as she had when she was a Mechon in New Game Plus. So that's the other interesting bit. Actually, kind of a shame that they give you all of this stuff for Fiora right before she dies. I mean, sorry, quote unquote, dies. This is my vision and I'm sticking to it. 2 Monados. To everything. Look at them. Look at them. Look at how cool they are together. Look at it. I want all of you to look at it. The laws of the universe are broken because there are 2 Monados. But yeah, I think that's really all I have to show on New Game Plus. Like, it's cool that a lot of things have been carried over, and a lot of things are now definitely better thanks to Definitive Edition not having any limits on what you can carry over. In fact, it auto carries over, basically. But, you know, there's nothing really too much different about New Game Plus aside from the fact that you can re-earn affinity coins. The true Monado is now there for you, making it easier for you to tackle the super bosses with. And, you know, all the stuff that carries over from one New Game Plus file goes to another one. You know, it's not like another New Game Plus where it actually kind of sort of feels like a different playthrough, because that New Game Plus technically has new content in that other Xenoblade game, obviously, but, you know, it's all very well and good. You know, you can go for New Game Plus if you want. I'm just gonna stick with my old game, thank you very much. And I'm actually going to switch it over to English now, thank you. Now, of course, I could talk about all the, you know, in this next part, I could talk about all the new and cool beta things that were actually available to us from the very start, aka all the good stuff that was cut from the game. Like unused weapons for Shulk, unused voice clips, the fact that the Bionis shoulder was completely cut, and there's a legit item in the actual Xenoblade Chronicles, aka that was unused and that I actually got legitimately mixed up with for another one. I legitimately thought the item called Bloodstained Face was, I legitimately thought the item Bloodstained Face was unused, but instead, it was actually another unused item that I got mixed up. And that would be this item called the Leader's Plate. If you legitimately look at that description right there, you can tell that it's all sorts of wrong. It's basically the faceplate of Yaldabaoth, but the game suggests that it could make for very nice tableware. Like, why is that so disturbing and morbid? Like, God, that's literally Egil. Look at this. Look at this. Egil died for this. Egil died for this. And you're telling me that Yaldabaoth, the coolest mechon ever, was legitimately used for tableware? Are you... God. There's a lot of unused items like that, and most of them are either just test items or just placeholders for other items. So that's something, I suppose. That's something. But there's also another topic that I kind of wanted to save for another video, but I think I might as well just put it in this video right here, because there's not really a whole lot of gameplay going on. And I wanted to talk about, you know, the Japanese voice acting, the New Game Plus content. I'll go over what I've changed up for my characters in a second, actually in the next video, because there will be gameplay for that. But the next subject I wanted to talk about has to do with the ending. So, basically, as you clearly saw in the ending, I basically love absolutely everything about, you know, Xenoblade's ending, the last hour. About how you fight Dixon at the top of Prison Island, how everyone encourages Shulk and Fiora. It really shows that the relationship is just too pure for this world. I really love the area where you fight all the bosses again as spirits, because it's space. Xanta's boss fight was great, including the music. Godsling Sword is one of my absolute favorite final boss themes ever, because now you're the boss fight. And everything having to do with the last twist at the ending was brilliant. The game throws one last curveball at you. It's great. But what I wanted to talk about was the subject of Fiora's body. So, Fiora was stuck with the mechon body. As we all know, Fiora is back alive, but she has a mechon body. It's entirely reconstructed out of her organs, right? And Maintenance Monado was powering it. You know, the very thing that's on her chest. And yeah, I'm definitely not zooming in for the boobs. This is important. This is important. So, as you can clearly see, maintenance Monado is basically no more at this point. At this point in time, Mainith is dead. And it's really a goddamn shame that we didn't get to see Mainith in a full design. She's so cool looking. But anyway, yeah, the point is, Mainith Monado is gone. And Fiora feels like she doesn't have that much time left. But as you saw in certain heart-to-hearts and certain moments in the story, Fiora basically had troubles with her body ever since Maintenance Monado left her. Basically, it was keeping her energy alive. And at this point, who knows how much time she has left. All she wants to do was to live her life with everyone and Shulk. And given the fact that she may not have much time left, it's very, very admirable. And this leads me to the Secret Monado Files art book. Basically, this art book basically gives out all the really cool art thingies, and it's really cool. You get to see a lot of concept art. You get to see the complete affinity chart. You also get to see a cut story element that has to deal with Fiora's body. Wait, what? Fiora actually had a character arc that was set in between Mechanis Core and flying into the Bionis Interior. So, basically what this arc entailed is that Fiora's body is experiencing malfunctions daily. And, again, she worries that she may not have that much time left. Every night, she's basically suffering from malfunctions, and no one can do anything about it. Melia is basically left to hold her hand every single night because of the sole fact that Shulk is gone every night. Should he not hold Fiora's hand instead of Melia? But obviously, holding a hand can't cure the pain. So, basically, Shulk is doing certain research in this tale, right? He's doing certain research, not only about replica Monados, because of the sole fact that Telethia are basically the enemies now, and Colony 9 needs to be prepared at any given moment. But he's also working on a secret project that he told no one about. He's looking for a way to restore Fiora's body, along with Linata and along with Mikol, who gave him the materials that he needed to get started. And what all this leads to is Melia angrily shouting at him like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Shulk's like, "Oh my god." And then he passes out and basically has a vision about Fiora getting her body back through a device that the ancient Hyentia made. So literally the next day, the gang goes over to Magma Ruins in Tephra Cave to discover this device. This was the vehicle that was in that Shulk, Ryan, and Fiora discussed at the very beginning when they were going out to get the ether cylinders. Like, who knows what it was there? Like, that device that restores bodies, the biological regeneration device it's called, it was technically there for God knows how long. And Melia could easily open it up with her successor genes and all that, just like in the Hyentia tomb. The gang goes over to the device, and they do discover that it indeed works. It does work. So Fiora has a choice to go into the device to basically stay there for 6 months while everyone else fights Zanza, or she goes along with them anyway to fight Zanza. And if her energy in her body doesn't run out, she can go back to the device and just stay there for 6 months while her body gets repaired. Obviously, she makes a choice not to stay in the device because who knows what will happen when everyone fights a god, Fiora is absolutely sure of her decision, so Linata absolutely makes sure that she squeezes every last second out of her body before the gang leaves for the Bionis Interior. That's basically the short version of this entire tale. That's basically the short version. I was planning on doing like sort of an audiobook reading of the whole thing. Like, I might still do that. But that's basically the whole gist of the whole thing. That was a whole story arc that was cut out. Maybe, probably, because of pacing, probably. I would definitely understand. I would definitely understand if that was the case. But, that could have been very interesting to see in-game. There's one last avenue that I wanted to discuss because, well, now that the information is basically out there, regardless of whether you played this game or, let's just say, another game, then you would probably know what this is. Alvis. He's a trope done right, the mysterious character that knows more than he needs to know, and yet he's very vague. I like his voice, I like his design, I like it, I like his whole style. I think it's cool, I think it's very cool. Like, whose side is he on? Is he on your side? Is he on the villain's side? I don't know, the game doesn't even know until the end. Actually, the game already knows, but, I'm not gonna say the game's stupid or anything. Anyway, Alvis. I also like his necklace. I think it's pretty cool. But there's something about that necklace that should be familiar to you by now, huh? In the original version of Xenoblade Chronicles, this was merely a key. It did nothing more, it did nothing less. It was just something that Alvis had around his neck. Nothing more. But in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, this was changed to a rather familiar shape that you should know. And this is basically the only retcon that Xenoblade DE did have. And it's very minor, but it's also incredibly major at the same time. Like, there's no cutscene in Xenoblade Definitive Edition that outright states this change. Like, it wasn't even a thing in the original version. But they could have found an opportunity to discuss it in Definitive Edition. But they didn't. They decided to keep this just, a little thing, but also a very big thing at the same time. Why is it a big deal? Well, this was basically inevitable, but this goes into tiny spoilers about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So, if you hadn't played that game, or if you hadn't seen the story, I would really recommend that you do so, because this next section is going to be spoilers. So, if you don't want to watch the rest of this video, then feel free to do so. But skip to this timestamp if you want to remain unspoiled about certain aspects of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I'll give you a few seconds. So, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was released in 2017. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition was released in 2020. So, I'm treating this like you may have experienced Xenoblade 2 already, but you haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles yet. Or, if you hadn't, then you probably have experienced both games. Because it's incredibly valid to experience one versus the other. You can play 2, then play 1, or you can play 1 and then play 2. Each of those stories are completely separate. They have new worlds, new characters. Some things might be very familiar to you if you played 2 and have played 1 also. Or rather, if you played 1 before 2. But otherwise, the stories in that game are entirely separate from each other. Except for one aspect. One tiny, tiny aspect. The fate of the character known as Ontos.
Ontos, Logos, and Pneuma. The three cores of the Trinity processor formed their cornerstone. However, Ontos triggered a space-time transition event and disappeared forever. I was left with the other two, Logos and Pneuma, entrusting them with managing the blades.
Alvis's necklace should be very familiar to you if you played Xenoblade 2 first and then played Definitive Edition. That's because what Alvis is wearing around his neck is a necklace of a core crystal. In fact, it is the core crystal. In Xenoblade Chronicles 2's lore, there are 3 Aegises, aka the most powerful of the weapons known as blades of the world, created by the architect so that they could collect the data of the world essentially. There's Ontos, Logos, and then there's Pneuma. However, according to the game's story, Ontos triggered a phase transition effect and disappeared from that world. So where did Ontos end up? In the Xenoblade 1 universe. There, he essentially became a computer for a administration facility, but that will mean little to you. Actually, it does matter a lot considering the fact that thanks to Xenoblade 2, we now know the fate of where Ontos originally came from and where Alvis ended up. Basically, according to Xenoblade 1, Alvis is basically a computer meant to maintain that game's universe, right? And before he handed the reins over to Shulk to create the world without gods, yeah, you can basically tell that Alvis is meant to be the true god. You know, he is the Monado. He is Monado, the beginning and the end, you know? So, yeah, very big lore dump right there. So yeah, if you played Xenoblade 2 before Xenoblade 1, then you should definitely know who Ontos is. Who he truly, truly is. That one little necklace around Alvis's neck truly did change everything. And with all that all explained, that's it for this video. Next time on Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, we continue our journey getting every last side quest. This is where it all begins, the beginning of the end, for real, of our first tale today. Or, you know, the days ahead. See you guys on the next time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.